Hey there, folks. Well, been in Facebook jail for 60 out of the last 90 days, and doesn't feel great being censored, you know. Obviously, I posted something that went against community standards, so they had just cause for putting me in Facebook jail. But during that time, you know, I have been tuned in to what's going on. I've been watching you guys posting things and wishing I could comment, wishing I could share things and all the stuff that we love doing on Facebook that I couldn't do. And, you know, one of the things that I saw happening on Facebook is this post from an activist who I really respect, that she was talking about building solidarity networks for people who want to flee the United States. So, you know, for a lot of us, we cannot flee the United States. We are stuck. We have to face down the dystopic fascist state that we're sliding into, we're charging into. And if you know any white nationalists, then you understand they're not planning on leaving the United States themselves. So, you know, the people who can escape, I totally respect that. If you have to do that, I understand. You know, if you have the means to do it, we're going to need international people internationally present advocating for those of us who are stuck inside of the United States. It's hard to think about it like this right now. But, you know, the laws just changed this week to allow ICE and the DHS to deport people without trial. So what this means is that an ICE agent could come up to me, say, I suspect you of being an undocumented immigrant, and deport me without trial or cause, or evidence or warrant. And, you know, this could happen to anybody. This law was specifically put in place to allow for that type of behavior for the mass deportation of political opponents. And another thing that's happening right now is that Ted Cruz, along with Despot Don, our Supreme Cheeto in charge, they're talking about labeling Antifa as terrorists. So that to be anti-fascist is now a brand of terrorism. Now, if you guys follow international news like I do, then you understand that dictators label their opponents as terrorists to allow them to do mass incarcerations. And you know, if you understand the way the military operates, it's one of the tactics that they employ when they go to foreign nations to round people up and do these mass incarcerations. That's what happened at Abu Ghraib in Iraq, is that they round people up and put them in these huge concentration camps where the people can then have their rights violated. So we already have the concentration camps inside of the United States, and now they're creating the laws that will allow for people like you and I who might not agree with a president's policies or with fascism, for instance, to be branded as terrorists and put inside of these types of camps. So I'm mentioning this now because I read a post from a friend who was talking about creating resiliency networks. So if someone you know has been branded a terrorist for resisting white nationalism and resisting the rise of fascism, they might need a sanctuary, a place to go to ground, a place to hide and get out of potential danger. So, you know, trying to remember the name of the people who were allies to slaves who were escaping the South. But they created these networks of people who were trying to escape the South and get to Canada or get up north to be free. And basically, we're going to have to start creating these types of networks again to help people escape the fascists. And, you know, for a lot of us, we cannot get passports to potentially leave the fascist state of America. So the people who can get passports and leave, as much as I hate saying it, I feel like it's actually the time to start fleeing. And if you can help others to escape the United States, you know, please do. A lot of us, we cannot go. But there are people who do want to go, but can't because of financial situations. So, you know, walls are built for containment. They're not only built to keep people out, they're built for containment. So the walls, when you hear the Supreme Court just told Donald Trump that he can use money from the military to build the wall. And when they talk about building that wall, all fascist dictators build walls to contain their population. They don't want us escaping. That's why they made the laws that disallow people from getting passports unless they pay their taxes. There's currently a law in the books that says if your taxes aren't current, you cannot obtain a passport. And they do that on purpose to maintain a population because nobody wants to live under fascism. So the fact that nobody wants to live under fascism is what causes people to try and flee fascist states. That's why you have a demilitarized zone in South Korea and North Korea, is because the people of North Korea wanted to escape the fascist state of North Korea, and that's why they have this demilitarized zone and huge deployment to try and prevent asylum seekers from escaping Korea. And it's the same thing all across fascist nations. That's what the Iron Curtain was. When they talk about the Iron Curtain, it was to maintain populations inside of the fascist states. So I believe that's what's coming here to the United States, is that we're going to see more extreme fascism. And for us to organize around concepts of actual liberty and actual freedom, we might have to do it in the dark. We might have to do it in hiding. We might have to organize outside of public view with our cell phones off, without any microphones around, because honestly, we live in a kleptocracy built on principles of white supremacy, and that's why we are in the state that we're in right now. So anyway, I was just talking with a lady yesterday that she is working every day of the week as hard as she can, as is her husband, to try and get together the money to flee to New Zealand, because they are people of color and they can see what's coming down the line. If you've been following the presidential tweets, what you'll see is that the president is using race baiting as a dog whistle to try and create a race war inside of the United States. And the mass shooting that just happened yesterday in California was done by a young person who has been radicalized by the extreme right, who took weaponry and murdered people of color. And he even referenced a white nationalist manifesto. So, it's hard for us to put it into context, because we live inside of the kleptocracy. We live inside of the white supremacist society. So it's hard for us to kind of see it and have our eyes open to it. But, I think it's important to start having these conversations about whether you're going to stay in the United States and try and, survive the fascist state that we're charging into, or whether you're going to flee from the United States and advocate for us on an international level, because we will need people outside of the United States advocating for those of us who are stuck inside of the United States and telling the world what's actually happening here. This is exactly how fascists do it, is that they isolate their people, they make it so that they can't have communications outside of their bubble. And they just changed the laws last year around the internet, because they're going to make it so the internet is more tightly controlled. So it's really hard. It's hard to talk about this stuff. It's hard to think about it. It's hard to understand it. But I did want to come on and talk about it. I feel like it is important for those of us who can flee the United States to start considering that option. And those of us who cannot or choose not to start building solidarity networks where we actively support each other. We actively create safe spaces for people of color, safe spaces for anti-fascists, and safe spaces for people who want to build community. So, just some people who you might think of holding space for: LGBTQIA people who are being openly attacked and criminalized. Women of color who can't get equal employment or equal pay or access to healthcare or medicine, education. There's a lot of people in the United States who are discriminated against, who don't feel safe, and who don't have, equal access to what we consider the amenities that we're all entitled to. And, farm workers. There are all kinds of asylum seekers who are having to hide out from ICE agents, even though they're not criminals and haven't done anything wrong. It's at the point in the United States where we have concentration camps. Those concentration camps are operated at a profit for people like Core Civic and Geo Group, and they have their eye on the leftist population of radicals, the leftist population of people of color who would potentially vote their handlers out. So, Donald Trump and his ilk, they want to see people like me inside of those concentration camps. I get all kinds of hate mail on Twitter and on YouTube telling me that I need to die. There's people putting death threats against me for the type of political speech that I create. And, those people are becoming more and more emboldened, and soon enough, it's going to be running gun battles in the streets. That's what's happening in other countries. They've moved on to having running gun battles in the streets. Places like Palestine, the people have been forced into concentration camps, and now they're launching their liberation movement from inside of concentration camps. So, that's what's coming to the United States. And I believe that it's already here. And that's why we need to create these resiliency networks. We need to have underground railroads that help people to escape, so that if they're trying to go north and get out of the United States to seek asylum in Canada, there's a group of people who facilitate folks leaving so that they can get out of danger. And, it's a crazy time right now. It's a crazy, crazy time. I do appreciate you guys tuning in. It's been a long time since I've been on here, and I have a lot of stuff going on in my personal life that I could catch you up on. But I just wanted to make this video, talk a little bit about the rise of fascism in the United States, white nationalism, and why we need an underground railroad, why we need resiliency networks that support people who are potentially endangered by fascism. If you know people who are endangered by fascism, try and have a conversation with them. Try and create a safe space for them so they don't have to be endangered. And if you know somebody who's an ICE agent, talk with them about how immoral it is. Talk with them about how this is what fascists do to their population. Try and have conversations about it, because we really need to start talking about how the United States is becoming a fascist state and what we can do to actively resist fascism. So with all that said, I'm going to let you guys go. I really do appreciate you taking the time to tune in. I hope you have a great rest of your day out there, and I will talk with you again very soon.